Hello students, today in this video we are going to explain cost of transportation and international trade. One of the basic assumptions of international trade theories was the existence of no transportation cost or zero transportation cost. But in the real world, the influence of transportation cost is very much, and influence of transportation cost on traded commodities will lead to variation in trade as well as variation in trade locations. It affects direction and component of international trade. Therefore, under this head, we are analyzing the cost of transportation and non-traded commodities, cost of transportation and location of different industries, and environmental standards, location of industry and international trade. We are going to analyze the topic in three heads. First of all, we are moving to the area cost of transportation and non-traded commodities. Before we entering into the details of the theory, first of all we have to define what are the cost is come under the transportation cost. In our analysis, cost of transportation include freight charges, warehousing cost, cost of loading and unloading, insurance premium for traded goods, interest charges, etc. Generally, all these costs come under transportation cost. Therefore, we will use the term transportation cost or logistic cost. And logistic cost include all the cost of transferring goods from one location to another. The analysis of transportation cost will give you some idea about why most of the products are not traded internationally. Some products are not traded internationally, and these goods are called non-traded goods and services. And it is also to be noted that a homogeneous product will be traded internationally only if the price of the exporting country or price in the exporting country plus transportation cost must be less than the price in the importing country. That is, international trade happens only if the product cost plus transportation cost must be less than the price of the importing country. If price in the country of export plus transportation cost is greater than the price of other country, then there will be no trade, and such category of goods are treated as non-traded goods. One of the best example of non-traded goods is cement. Cement is not traded internationally. It is normally traded only internationally only in borders. Therefore, we can say that price of a non-traded product, that is price where there is lack of international trade, price of such a non-traded product is determined by domestic demand and supply. That is, domestic demand and supply determines price of a commodity if the product is a non-traded product, and if the product is a traded product, international or world demand and supply will determine price of traded goods. Thus, we have classified products into traded goods and non-traded goods. Non-traded goods are the goods which are not traded due to high transportation cost. Two important points to be considered here: reduction in transportation cost as a result of the use of various technologies have converted many non-traded products to traded goods. For example, fruits and vegetables were not traded internationally at the initial period of trade, but later when technology developed and there is a drastic decrease in transportation costs, these fruits and vegetables were come into the list of traded goods. That is, non-traded vegetables and fruits became traded goods. Second point is that containerized cargo shipping also reduced the cost of handling. That is, certain products can be packed in large containers. Instead of selling it in small units, they can be packed in large containers, and this containerized cargo shipping reduced the cost of handling, and this reduction in handling cost or transportation cost has converted these kinds of products from non-traded goods to traded goods. Now in the next video we are moving to the detailed illustration of cost of transportation and international trade. Hello students, in this video we are analyzing the cost of transportation and its effect on international trade. For this we are taking the example of country 1 and country 2. We have drawn a normal x-axis and a y-axis. On one side we are representing nation 1 who are exporting the commodity, and on the other side we are representing nation 2 where the nation 2 is importing the commodity from nation 1. On x-axis we are having quantity of the commodity, and on y-axis we are representing price of the commodity. Here nation 1 is represented the left side of the origin, it is not the negative side. For analytical convenience and to compare two countries, we have taken the mirror image of nation 1. Their supply curve move positively from the origin, and there is a corresponding demand curve here. This is the supply curve and this is the demand curve of nation 1. In the same manner we will be having a normal supply curve of nation 2. In the same manner there is a demand curve of nation 2 as well. These are the demand and supply conditions of two nations. If there is no trade, country 1, nation 1 will be producing this much quantity at this much price, and country B will be producing this much quantity at this much price. That means OQ1 will be the quantity produced by country 1 at OP1 price, and if there is no trade, country 2, nation 2 will be producing OQ2 of quantity and selling at OP2 price. That is, price of nation 2 is much higher than that of nation 1, that is producing country. Both the countries are producing the commodity, but the cost of production and price of the commodity is very high in nation 2, and there is automatically there is possibility of trade in between nation 1 and nation 2 due to this large price difference. Let us assume that at present there is no transportation cost in between two nations. Then they will be producing and exporting a particular quantity at a particular price. It can be represented as this blue line. Here it is clear that nation 1 is exporting AB amount of commodity, and the same amount is being imported by nation 2, that is CD. That is AB is the export of nation 1, which is equal to CD is the import of nation 2. And the price of the commodity is fixed here in between the price of nation 1 and nation 2. Here nation 1 alone is producing a particular quantity, that is they are producing this much quantity. Out of this they are consuming only this much, and the remaining this much quantity is being exported to other country. In the same manner, nation 2 is consuming this much quantity, they are producing only this much quantity, and this much amount is being imported from nation 1. Now we are introducing transportation cost to it. When transportation cost is introduced, the cost of commodity will be increased. That means price in the exporting country will be increased. It can reflect in two ways. Here we assume that the cost of transportation is 2 units, 2 rupees, and that is divided equally in between the nations. Therefore, the revenue received by the exporting countries' producers will be decreased, and the cost that is to be paid by the importing country will be increased. Once again, the price or revenue received by the exporting countries' producers will be decreased, and the cost that is to be paid by the consumers of importing country will be increased. This can be shown like this dotted line in nation 1 and the same dotted line in nation 2. But it is clear that in nation 1, initially, for example, if a country is getting 8 rupees at the initial stage, if the exporting country has to bear the transportation cost out of this 8 rupees, they will be receiving only 7, because they are receiving 8, but they are actually receiving 7 because they have to pay 1 rupee transportation cost. In the same manner, in case of nation 2, initially they had received the commodity at rupees 8, but now they have to bear 1 rupee transportation cost as well. Automatically its price increases to 9. That means there will be a 1 unit reduction in the revenue of exporting countries' producers and a 1 unit increase in the cost of consumers of importing country. It also results in a decrease in the quantity of trade. Initially, AB was the quantity of export and the same amount CD was the quantity of import by nation 2. Now A1, B1 is the export of nation 1, which is equally imported to nation 2, that is C1, D1. Initially, the quantity of export was this much amount, now it decreased to this much amount. Similarly, in case of nation 2, initially the import was this much amount, now it decreased to this much amount. That is, as a result of transportation cost, the quantity of export and import, that means the quantity of trade in between nations decreases. We have initially said that if the price in exporting country plus transportation cost is less than the price of importing country, then only trade happens. Otherwise, there is no possibility of having trade. Here it is clear that even after imposing the transportation cost, the price of the commodity is lower than that of the importing country's price, initial internal price. That is, initial internal price of nation 2 was this much amount, and that of nation 1 is this much amount. The price of exporting country increases, and that of importing country decreases. Here the price of exporting country plus transportation cost lies below the importing country's internal price. That is the reason for having trade in between these two nations. The most important point in drawing this diagram is that if the transportation cost is bared equally in between these two nations, the supply of the exporting country will be decreased, and similarly the demand of importing country also will be decreased. When the supply decreases, because the producers will have to bear the cost of transportation as well, it means that there will be increase in cost, that is normally reflected in reduction in output, excess output, and that's why we have drawn a red line A1 B1 just below AB, that is in case of nation 1, and in case of nation 2 the quantity demanded decreases. Initially it was CD and now it is C1 D1, that is there is a reduction in the quantity consumed by the consumers of nation 2, because they will have to bear the cost of transportation, and it normally results in an increase in price of the commodity. This is the same diagram taken from Salvatore. Here you can see that the left side of this diagram is showing, that is nation 1, and the right side we are having nation 2, and the initial stage in nation 1 is producing 50 units at rupees 5 or at $5, and nation 2 is consuming 50 unit at $11. In the second stage we are considering the trade without any transportation cost. Here the applicable price of the commodity is 8, that is 8 here. This much of quantity is being exported by nation 1 and the same quantity is being imported by nation 2. After incorporating transportation cost, nation 1's export of nation 1 has been decreased. Initially it was this much, now it decreased to this much, and similarly in case of nation 2 they were initially importing this much, but now they are importing only this much. That is, there is reduction in quantity of both the countries, reduction in quantity of trade. As we stated above, the point to be noted here is that if the transportation cost is bared in between nations equally, trading nations equally, there will be reduction in supply in case of exporting country. Initially it was this much and now decreased to this much amount. And similarly there is reduction in demand. Initially they have been the importing country is demanding this much quantity, and now they are demanding only this much quantity. That means from the part of the nation 1 who is exporting the commodity, there is reduction in supply after incorporating transportation cost. That is, in case of importing country, their quantity demand is on decrease because there is increase in price of the commodity. One more point to be noted here is that here we are assuming the demand curve and supply curve of both the nations with the same elasticity. That is, demand and supply curves of both the nations are assumed to be equally elastic. That is, elasticity of the demand curve of both the nations are same and elasticity of supply curve of both the nations are same. That's why it is possible to divide the cost of transportation equally in between two nations. If there are differences in elasticity, it will automatically will be bared by either nation 1 or nation 2 on the basis of their respective elasticities. Therefore, we have proved that transportation cost has an influence in the quantity of international trade as well as the price that prevails in international trade. Thank you.